Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Chiefs Council. This is a channel that will be dedicated to discussing certain topics that, help trigger certain ideas and also helps us discuss what's going on out there in our lives. This is a channel I've been working on for quite a while, and I'm happy to see that it's working great. I've been working with a few people who you will be hearing from. One will be Elder, who will be talking with me on a subject today. Before we go ahead, we're just going to run the intro, and I'll be right back. Welcome back. So I have Elder on the line right now, and we're just going to do a little bit of preamble and then we'll get into the discussion for today. So, Elder, welcome.
Thank you.
This is, as you know, we've been planning this for quite a while, and we've decided to, go for it and make this our first video
Mm-hmm.
as this council. Okay.
Yes.
So what is something on your end you would like for your viewers or your listeners to get from our discussions, not just now, but all through the time, which is going to change as time goes on. But what is your initial idea of why you think this is something that is important?
Well, Chief, thank you for having me. Like you rightly said, we've been talking about this, so it's good to see that this has come to reality. Um, I guess coming on to this show, the goal will be to provoke our listeners' thoughts. Um, you know, have discussions that will create an altered way of thinking, and hopefully that will result in change. We may not be able to measure it, but at least like we'll probably receive calls from our listeners telling us how they implemented some of what we discussed in their communities, and hopefully that would also result in change being effected. So I guess it's in summary, my goal is to have a thought-provoking discussion that will have a far reach.
Okay. Okay, great. Same here. That's exactly the same ideas. Because just like you, I do watch quite a lot of what's going on around, and certain stories do trigger um, certain ideas in your head that you
Mm-hmm.
wish you can, share out there. And it's always good to have this back and forth with someone else and not just with yourself and a YouTube video. Okay. Okay,
Absolutely.
that's good. So the first idea is something since we just want to go out there and just see what's out there. There's a million and one things we could talk about,
Mm-hmm.
and our topics are going to vary depending
Mm-hmm.
on what's going on in our lives that week, what's on the news, not
Yeah,
just
variety is the
in
spice of
science
life,
and
right?
yes,
So that's
yeah,
good.
exactly. Not just science, not just technology, not just philosophy, not just politics, not just religion. Um, Also going far and wide, and even thinking about those things that you only think of at night, and you wonder if anybody else is thinking the same thing, and then we can talk about it and hopefully get our listeners' opinion. Okay,
So nothing is off limits from what you're
so
saying.
nothing exactly, nothing is off limits.
Excellent.
It's an
Oh, wow.
idea of if this is something that has come up,
Mm-hmm.
either a news online or a story or something, or that you think is thought provoking. It doesn't matter how insane or how crazy it sounds. It's always something that can be discussed. And also, we also give some information on, like you initially mentioned, we're going to talk about, you know, not just things out there in the news. We also find like wonderful articles, and these are journals which we can always discuss.
Hmm.
And you have a lot of experience, going through those, and we can always break those down and see what the evidence is out there. So, which is also good.
Okay.
Okay. So for today, I wanted to start on a very light note since we're going to spend a little bit of time just going back and forth and talking about something I did find. Um,
Okay.
of course, with this climate, we do get a lot of emails and on what's going on around us. And one of the things I did find was this website. The plan of the website actually is to give you a political compass. It's called politicalcompass.org or .org.
Hmm.
But one thing I noticed when I was filling this out was a lot of the questions it took me like 5 minutes to go through the question and answer it because it was very thought provoking. And I was like, this is something I would honestly like to talk through. And I wanted to go through a few of them with you. And then you give me your thoughts. I'm sure you have the website open already on your end.
I
Um,
can, I can do that right now.
yes,
So political.
compass.org.
All right. So what do I? So I do I hit take the test?
Not really. So the idea is not taking the test. It's
Okay.
something you can do, and maybe we can talk about that later on, but it's not actually my thinking on this. It's
Okay.
just these are things that people argue about because we do have a lot of people who are tied down to certain ideas, including
Mm,
me. And
mm,
this actually did shake certain things I thought I knew about myself. This really shook that. It really made it feel like I really need to think more about the way I see the world and the way I respond to the world. Okay. A good
mhm.
example is the first question. Do you want to take the first question and you see what I'm talking about? Yeah.
All right, cool. So the first question says, if economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interest of transnational corporations. And to my right, I have four options from strongly disagree through strongly agree.
Yes.
And so let me think about that. Economic pleasure is inevitable. I'm going to choose strongly agree here.
Okay. Okay. So this was one that I found really, because the breakdown of strongly disagree to strongly agree, as you know, is you cannot really quantify to say if I say I strongly agree, it feels to somebody like me right now that we should not have the interest of transnational corporations in mind.
Hmm.
Because technically, if the first part of the question about economic globalization means
Hmm.
these are the corporations that are running this thing, that make these things work.
Right.
Okay. So if you put the corporations on, if you have a liver and you put the corporations on one and you put the humanity on the other, you need to create a balance between both of them. Okay. And then at some point, you would say sometimes transnational corporations would come before humanity, and sometimes humanity will come before transnational corporations because you feel that those corporations may benefit humanity, or on the flip side, you feel that sometimes the corporations would not benefit, as in leaning more towards them for whatever reason would not, benefit humanity. So, which is why I chose agree. I didn't strongly agree with that
Right.
because I feel corporations still interest of corporations still need to be thought about. Because without them, if you're always leaning on humanity, at a point those corporations may not viable or able to exist, which you now have a very vicious, horrible, cycle in which humanity suffers in the long run. I don't know what do you think?
I mean, like you make a good point there. I guess primarily, what tipped me over to strongly agree was because the question emphasized on the primary purpose,
Yeah.
right? So because of that emphasis, I felt it should be on humanity as a general group That to
Okay.
me should be the target group when we're
Okay.
at least thinking about globalization policies.
Yeah.
Um, I think the corporations that bring about these changes will benefit as a result because they are the ones that will bring about the changes to the common masses, right?
Okay.
But I think whenever our politicians are thinking about implementing policies, the larger population should be taken into consideration. Um, for example, you do not want to, for the sake of globalization, risk policies that could put people's health at risk,
I agree.
or 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 maybe again, I'm not an economist now, but or maybe cut, impact a policy, or sorry, implement a policy that would have negative consequences in a specific region, right? So like we see what happens in Africa, as an example, where a lot of countries that are rich with natural resources are not being paid their fair share from
Okay.
multinational corporations. So that's what I'm thinking about when I see this question that emphasizes on the primary
Primary.
purpose.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
so
Okay.
that's why I lean that. I guess it's just my moral compass in this case where that's driving me to that particular option.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
basically, what you're saying is, even though sometimes you would want to consider the corporations, on
Mhm.
average, you should make sure that humanity is always first and foremost, and then the corporation comes second.
Yes, that's an eloquent way of summarizing it. Yes, that's
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Great. So that's fine. And then the next one, which was the one I found the most interesting,
Hmm.
was it says, I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong.
Mm.
Now, this is it brought a lot of ideas in my head. I was like, this
Yeah.
has led to wars being fought, and a lot of civil unrest, and a lot
Right.
of I don't know. You go ahead. I just want to see. I just want to get your point of
Yeah,
view, since
this this
you're the guest today, and yes.
yeah, this is a tough one. It's a tough one because, so I guess before I choose an answer, right, and I don't want to go too technical, but when they say support, like, so what does support entail in this case?
Exactly. That's another thing. So I'm assuming they want to put an idea in your head of something that you feel is right and something that you feel is wrong. And then they let you know that these are things you disagree with, these are things you agree with. And would you support your country whether they fall on one end or the other?
Regardless.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
why don't you give an example of something that you are vehemently against and then something you are vehemently for? Something simple, it doesn't have to be like human rights. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something simple. And then you think about it and say, would I still support my country regardless? And it now brings up another question of, what does support mean? Does
Yeah,
that mean
exactly.
I
Yeah.
would revolt against my country and kill my own countrymen, like going to war with them? Or does that mean when it comes to vote, I would vote against it? Because when you say country, you always think of like war. Because for you to
Yeah.
say country, it thinks of, yes, you are going to war for something, or
Yeah.
you are challenging your whole country, which is as good as just going to war with everyone. Um, so I
Yeah.
found this
So
very, very hard to answer.
yeah, it's quite difficult because, like you also alluded to, support could mean different things. You
Yes.
know, is it going to be support in terms of putting my hand on my chest every single time saying, "Look, I'm proud of my country, regardless of the inhumane policies they enact," or is it a case where I will show my support at the polls? Or I mean, like, what does it entail? I mean, the scope of that word support, I think, is crucial in answering this question. But
Yes.
let's assume we keep it on the surface, right? Keep it shallow,
Yes.
no depth,
Okay.
and assume support means would you be a proud ambassador of your
Yes.
country? If we keep it that way, if we keep it that simple, I will still say I disagree. And back to your initial request about two examples.
Yes.
Um, an example, the first example would be a situation where my country implements a policy that targets a specific ethnic group. So
Okay.
I'm from Africa, right? And as most African countries, um, within them, it's a very heterogeneous group, right?
Yes.
Usually a lot of ethnic groups. So I'm thinking of a policy that intentionally represses an ethnic group because
I can't think of one that it's actually there policy wise. Um.
but so when we think about the genocide in
Okay.
Rwanda,
Okay. Okay.
don't you think that had government support?
Yes. Yes. Definitely. The leaders were in.
Yeah,
It's yes.
yeah,
I totally
yeah,
agree with you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So then when we think about the think about a country like Nigeria, right, where the Igbos, it's not officially documented, but since the post Civil War,
Yes.
there was a deliberate there were not just there were deliberate actions taken by the government to marginalize the Igbos, right?
Yes.
So I mean, now I think the country now is under the democratic rule, but prior to that, there were deliberate instances where individuals or indigents from the southeast were marginalized. I believe even the military, they couldn't rise beyond a specific rank in the military, right?
Mm.
So those were targeted, and for such a reason, I will not be so proud to be an ambassador because I know the potential all of all citizens are not being allowed to flourish, and so in that regard, I will not be proud to be an ambassador of my country.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. I
I
agree.
mean, yeah, and I guess like you can maybe your rebuttal will be, well, we have those inequalities in most countries, um, but again, it would depend on the extent of the law. Like we know countries where, for example, people's sexual orientation leads to them being killed.
Yes.
I I want to imagine that some citizens will be ashamed of the country for having such a let's say a very harsh harsh view towards people's choices.
Yeah.
So
It's technically a human rights violation. It's
exactly. So that's where I'm saying, like, if I'm in a position or if I'm a citizen from a country that has, that represses specific populations, I wouldn't be a very proud ambassador.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing like the I had two, like scales or steps to this. One
Hmm.
was like you mentioned, is being an ambassador, or being um speaking good about your country or
Hmm.
based on certain policies.
Right.
On the right, which is the good parts of what this is things like, um, the way we ended female genital mutilation, for example, in Africa, in certain countries in Africa.
Hmm.
And I was like, that's great.
Right.
After so many decades and so many years, even child marriages. Just was reading a story that Sudan had, you know, stopped it.
Hmm.
Um, I think I'm mixing it up. I don't know if that's female genital mutilation or child marriage, but
Okay.
these are things you can be proud of, even though
Right.
you are horrified that it's been there for so long. You can be proud of it. And
Right.
then on the flip side, if your country has laws that allow those kind of things,
Yeah.
those are things that I would vehemently vote against,
Right.
vehemently oppose,
Yeah.
and would never support. Okay,
Ah, absolutely. I mean,
but
like you.
where
Yeah. Go
yes,
ahead.
so where my next step is what if something like that leads to war? Okay, would you
Mhm.
fight against your people? Because that's where something horrible begins. Because
Right.
most of these wars, like you mentioned about the Rwandan genocide, okay,
Hmm.
um, if you are in such a situation, you can lead it to any war, Nazis versus the Jews, the Rwandan genocide, Tutsis, and I seem to have forgotten the other group of people. Um, but the thing is, would you flip
Right.
sides? Now, imagine if it was a whole country, like your home country versus a country in Europe or in Asia or in America or something. Would
Hmm.
you, what would you do at that point in time? Would you decide, you know what, I'm going to join the opposing side so that my country does not take over, like a world power, for example? If your country was a world power, would you decide
Uh-huh.
that they have gotten so much power that they're trying to oppress, just like the Germans did, during World War II or the Second World War? Um, would you decide to fight, against them, where you know that you are going to harm and hurt some of your own people who may just be fighting just because they are proud to be their country? Some of them may also have those, harsh views. Um, that's the second step I honestly could not figure out, because in my question was, would I want to destroy my country, because that's what war does? Because if they lose, they are destroyed. Because I am fine with internal conflicts. I can always fight internally, because that's fine. What if your country versus another country based on ideas that you do not agree with?
Well, that's a great question. I think as we both talk about this aspect, we wouldn't want to sell ourselves as potential spies, right?
Yeah, definitely not me. That's not. Yeah. But
Counter
that's
counterintelligence.
yes, but that's something that I really sat down and thought about, and I was like,
Yeah,
this is a very real thing, and I honestly don't know where I would fall into, because I might have to take it step by step.
yeah. I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would go with disagree. I
It,
totally agree with you. I disagree. I don't strongly disagree, but I disagree,
yeah, I
because I think
disagree.
there are some areas whereby, even though they are wrong, I would not feel like not supporting them might not be the best thing in the long run. May be good in the short run, but in the long run may backfire.
Yeah.
And yes,
So, Chief, when it comes to international conflicts,
okay,
so like between countries now, right?
yes,
I think it's a different context. Wouldn't you agree? Because now it's a case of allegiance, right? You want to. I want to believe most citizens have a duty to fight for the flag, and
okay.
so
So sorry to cut you short, but so now, not to place you on because that I also thought of that. But so would you say
right.
that if you were in Nazi Germany and Germany decided to do what they did, you would still fight for Germany? I'm not. I know you are not.
Oh, so
It's this
that's
is it.
so that's an extreme. So
No,
absolutely, in that sort of situation, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. Exactly. You're right though, because like even if we use the Rwandan genocide,
yes,
and
yes,
your moral compass tells you this is wrong, and maybe there are countries that need help to stop this, you may be inclined to support those countries if they're sure that their intervention would lead to a complete alleviation of and to stop the genocide. So I get what you're saying. I think it's tricky in that regard in terms of this question, but I will still stick with my original answer in terms of I will disagree. I will not always support my country all the time.
Okay,
Uh, yeah,
great. But we're on the same page on that.
yeah,
Um,
right.
Next one was also interesting. I also have a story for this one. But
Mm.
you want to take this one?
So the question says, no one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. um, I don't think people I don't think people are proud of their country simply because they were born in it.
I agree.
I think yes, as kids growing up, you sing the national anthem, you hear stories, and those stories shape your admiration and respect for your country. But I believe as you get older, right, and you tend to read about the benefits of being a citizen in that country, and whether we like it or not, I think we make this mental comparison with other countries, you know, and
Yes.
then we sort of appreciate what we have as citizens of whichever country we're part of. And I think those experiences, those comparisons, those and everything that comes with it helps inform our conscious decision to feel pride. And so I think I'm going to my answer for this. So it's foolish to be proud of it. Uh, I'll probably agree with this.
Okay. So,
It be, I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing with it not because of how it's stated in terms of like saying it's foolish is a little bit extreme, right? But
yes.
I'm agreeing with it because just being born in a country shouldn't be enough reason to make you proud of it, right? It's like you can make the same argument about religion.
Yes.
Being born in a Muslim, Catholic, or non-denominational household isn't enough I mean, it shouldn't be enough to raise your family, your future family in the line of those teachings, right? You should have that personal, you should make that conscious decision to be involved in that religion and follow the doctrine, right? So in the same case, I think pride, national pride, should evolve and should be based off experiences. So here I'll say I I agree. It's a little bit. It's not enough to be proud of a country because we're born in it. That's all.
Yeah.
What's
So
your what's your what's your answer?
so you mentioned the context which I was thinking, because unfortunately these questions are not, do not explain a lot on what the information the person is trying to get across.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because when you say no one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. Like you mentioned, that pride some people feel about their country is not just because they were born in it. Okay. Um, is that they were born
Mm-hmm.
there and over the span of their lifetime, they have had these experiences that have built this pride. Now, of course,
Exactly.
if you live in a horrible country, of course you're gonna have any pride for that country. You're gonna want
My
to leave. But
exactly.
we're assuming your country is, if you fall on the side in which your country is average to great. Um, but the question now comes in, like you said, whenever you are born, you're taught the national anthem, you're taught the traditions, the cultures, and you are forced, in quotes, um, to learn those things, and over time you build it. So it seems like your elders are like, or those that have more experience than you when you're a child, are trying to build that pride that they also have for their country. Okay. Um, which is interesting because we could say the same thing about anything. You don't choose to be born male or female, so you should be proud to be a man or be a woman. Or you know you you didn't choose the family you were born into, so you should be
Right.
proud of the family you were born into. I don't agree with that. I feel that it's pride is something that is built over time,
Right.
and most people, when they get into those social groups, they are happy. They are happy to live. Um, they are happy to, be part of it until they learn the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then over
Hmm.
time they can make a decision. But if you don't have that initial pride to be part of a group, it's
Right.
going to be very hard for you to learn, grow, and develop in that group. Um,
So
so
if I
I, I
if I understand you correctly, like you're saying, being born in the country helps helps develop that pride. It
yes,
gives you that baseline level of pride, and then
exactly,
experiences then augment it.
exactly. So you might have less pride when you grow up, or you
Hmm.
have more pride when you
More
grow up.
pride when you grow up.
Regardless, it's something to have pride in.
So
It's
let me play devil's advocate here. So
okay.
what about millions of immigrants who move from developing countries to the more developed countries, right?
Okay.
Um, of course, the initial motive most times is for economic prosperity,
Yes.
right? But then as they arrive in those countries, their experiences and yes, their experiences, mainly net positive experiences, helps them create pride, help them to feel part of society, and so much pride that they tend to be citizens. So in that case, you have an individual that wasn't born, but his or experiences shaped their decision to go ahead and be a citizen and to be
Yes.
proud of that country. So how would you explain that? That person had no baseline level for being born in that country. So
No,
how would you explain that?
no. That's my idea is you just moving into a country that you have never experienced
Hmm.
is just the same as a child being born. Yes, you're a little bit older, and because a child who was born in, I don't know, South Africa, and
Hmm.
at 1 year of life
Mm.
moved to um, the United States or whatever country they go to after that,
Right.
most of them would want to learn about their home of birth. It's a drive that a lot of people have. It's People have it here in America. Where they were born, they want to speak the language, they want to learn the culture, they want to. It's something that even though you are in a different country, for
Hmm.
some reason you still have this longing to want to know a lot about where you were born. What is it like? You would like to visit it. You would like to experience things over there. It's and there is there is no law that says you can't be proud of two countries. So my idea is looking at it from a baseline view of being proud because you were born in a country. Some people are lucky enough to be born in places that are, developed or developing, and life is starts out great and they experience the best things in life.
Right.
But on average, my qualms with this question is just the overlapping way of saying because of this, therefore this. So because no one chooses, therefore it's foolish to be proud. And I don't think the world works that way. I don't.
So what's your answer?
So I disagree. I don't strongly disagree. I just disagree. I think it's yeah. I think being born somewhere or being of a certain sex or a certain race or a certain it's you are part of a group, and it's something to be proud of because it's that pride that gives you the motivation to learn, to grow, to appreciate, and also to pass forward that culture or that legacy to somebody else who also falls in that group. And also that's why most people maintain their cultures over time. It's because of that, you know, parent to child or uh, elders to kids or it's that pride that makes that cycle go on and
Yeah.
gives us what we have. Yes. Yes. So you want to do one last one before you leave? Or do this
I
second
want
this? Yeah.
before we take another question, I would like to say our South African followers will not like that comparison. By the way, some will probably argue their experiences is probably better than some in the United States. Just need to put that out there.
Yeah, but yeah, I know it's just an example. I just wanted to pick a country in just I had a friend who um but my since we're almost rounding up,
Yeah.
my my story was actually meeting a lady who mentioned about the idea of when I mentioned I'm proud to be a man, and
Uh-huh.
she was like, "You didn't choose to be a man. How can you be proud to be a man?" I'm like, "I know nothing else. This is how I was born. This is how I grew. This is
Uh-huh.
all I know. This is my experience in life, and it's something I am proud to experience. And if I do have a son, I'll be proud to teach him how to go from a boy to a man because it's something to be proud of. Of course, there are horrible people out there,
Right.
but there are very awesome qualities that make you who you are. And
So
one of those qualities is being part of that group that makes you who you are. And it's something to be proud of. That's my
yeah,
thinking.
but do you see that the key decision, um, like you sort of alluded to, is you're being part of the group, and then you have made that conscious, you have that awareness to realize that being part of this group has enough benefits to make you proud of it, right? So so again, it speaks to my initial point as to having that experience as an adult helps increases your awareness and then ultimately shapes your decision to feel that pride. So don't you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, so let me give you, there's something you just mentioned now that makes it. It's just like when you move into a new school
Mm,
or into a new organization that you've never worked at or you've never schooled at, but you've heard a lot of stories about that organization or that school or whatever it is you're doing anew.
hmm.
And your first time being there, you have this overwhelming joy to be part of it. Now you don't know what's going to happen, and you could be fired the next week, but or you could be expelled the next month. But that initial time in which you are now part of a group of this thing you've been chasing, although you haven't been chasing it, let's assume, because nobody who is born decides to be born there, but that initial feeling you get to know that you're part of a family or part of a group of people who will teach you, who will give you experiences, you just have that little nudge. Even babies, I believe, have that thing when they have it with their mothers, but I think that's more of a nurturing thing. But
Right.
I still feel there's this innate longing to be part of a group, and it's something that you do chase. And over time, of course you don't have initial overwhelming pride because know very little, but you are happy and to be part of a group. And that's something I feel most people have, regardless of where they are, initially at least.
Okay. All
But I'm
right.
sure that there are exceptions, of course. There are always exceptions because that's what I'm gonna get in the comments. But I'm sure there are exceptions,
Yeah,
but
it would be.
overwhelmingly, yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what our listeners think about this, especially these three questions we just went over.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this was good. This was very good. This was the kind of thing I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
And go back and forth, and and this was a very good first start. How was it for you? What are your thoughts on, this kind of,
Yeah, it was actually a good experience. Probably even better than I imagined. Thank you for having me here, Chief. I look forward to it and coming back on your show. Once this is available to our listeners, I'm curious, like I said, to see what people think about this in the comments. So, great job.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks
Awesome.
for coming and sharing your thoughts. Okay. And I'll
Excellent.
see you hopefully next week.
All right. All right. All
Okay then.
right. You
Take
take
care.
care. Bye.
Okay, everyone. That was our first video, and I think things went great. I was happy to have Elder here, and I look forward to making some more and discussing with everyone about a wide series of subjects. You all have a wonderful day, and see you next time.